Responsible people are often the ones holding everything together. The finances, the schedules, the planning, the problems. If that's you, you become the one who tracks everything, plans everything, and makes sure nothing falls apart. But there's a hidden cost to living life like that, and for a long time, I didn't even realize I was paying it. If you want to see the spreadsheet system that eventually helped me remove a lot of that pressure, I've linked it below this video. Responsible people become the stable system for everyone else. You become the one who tracks everything, plans everything, and holds everything together. And the more people that you're responsible for, the more pressure you can carry. That can include elderly parents, children, a spouse or partner, a team at work, a boss who needs you to read their mind, and a client who struggles to read the detailed emails that you send. Each of those people have a million balls in the air, and eventually it feels like you're responsible for catching all of them. Spoiler alert, you won't. One area where I've helped a lot of clients simplify things is email. Right now, I'm responsible for 7 email addresses plus 4 more for my family. If I didn't have systems, it would be chaos. So I organize them carefully. I snooze emails to get them out of my inbox. I unsubscribe from things I don't need. And I filter emails into folders. It's not perfect, but those systems remove a huge mental load. And eventually I realized the same thing needed to happen in the rest of my life. When we had our first child, my husband and I were both working full-time. I was traveling a lot. He handled daycare drop-off and pickup and usually had dinner started by the time I got home. I cooked a lot from scratch and honestly felt like I was doing pretty well. We weren't perfect, but we made good money, had good health insurance, and we were debt-free. We even had an emergency fund. And then we started exploring adoption. For about a year, I researched everything. Spreadsheets on spreadsheets. At the same time, my husband was exploring a career move that required another master's degree and meant years of papers, requirements, and classes, all while working full-time. Then a year into his program, we adopted our daughter. He took off a day and a half from school to be at the hospital and to help us transition home. Within 6 weeks of her birth, we were all back at work. And I realized something pretty quickly. I couldn't handle 2 kids, travel for work, him being in school full-time. We didn't have any family nearby to help. So I left my job and took another one. I picked up side gigs to cover the difference. And this season of life continued for a long time. I was constantly hustling, trying to prove myself at work. The environment I was in actually rewarded hustle. I had taken a pay cut and was only supposed to work about 30 hours a week. But I was expected to be available all the time. Text messages in the middle of the night. Constant pressure. And then when our daughter was almost 2.5 and our oldest was almost 5, I found out I was pregnant with our 3rd child. It only increased the pressure. I worked up until a few hours before I gave birth. I pooled all of my vacation days from the previous year, the current year, and the next year just to cobble together 6 weeks of maternity leave. When I went back to work, I was drowning. My youngest never took a bottle, so I scheduled meetings around feeding him. Sometimes I was feeding him in whatever space I could find, which was often the restroom. My youngest needed me for survival. My older kids were still very dependent on me, and my job needed more than I could give. My husband was driving over an hour to school while also working full-time. My work felt like it was never done. I never felt like enough. Eventually, I was able to leave that toxic job, and I took another one and added more clients. By the time March of 2020 arrived, I had built a business working for myself. But when the world shut down, my hustle went into overdrive. I added more and more clients. By the end of 2021, I had over 20 clients, and I was working more than 60 hours a week. Every day of the year, I thought working for myself would bring freedom, but it didn't. I felt like I was a hostage to work. I never wanted to leave money on the table. But eventually I narrowed down my work to just a few clients. But I was still working constantly, every day. My boundaries were terrible. Other people's expectations dictated my time, my mood, my attention. I was miserable. It took a lot, poor treatment, missing out on things that mattered, and a lot of counseling to finally see something clearly. My time was not aligned with my priorities, and I didn't want my family to think that they were less important than my job. So I left another toxic job and I reduced my client load again. My income dropped, but something surprising happened. For the first time in years, I actually felt more stable. I stopped working on the weekends, and my phone didn't ring during dinner. I didn't get emergency calls while I was on vacation. And I realized something very important. It wasn't the hustle that created stability. It was systems. Responsible people burn out when stability depends on constant effort. Real stability comes from systems, margin, and fewer decisions. Those create the ability to actually live the life that you care about. That's exactly what our budgeting system helped me do. It removed a lot of the constant pressure trying to hold everything together. If you want to see that spreadsheet that we used, the link is below this video. What actually changed for me wasn't that I suddenly became less responsible. It's that I stopped trying to carry everything myself. Instead, I started deciding things once, and then I built systems around those decisions. For example, I decided once that my clients don't get to dictate what an emergency is. If someone didn't plan well, that doesn't automatically become an emergency for me. I also decided once that I don't work evenings or weekends unless I choose to. And I don't work after 4 o'clock if I don't want to. And if someone expects me to answer messages late at night or work all weekend, then they're probably not someone that I want to work with. Period. That boundary isn't about changing myself. It's about choosing who and what I allow to shape my time. Because responsible people often think the solution is to work harder. That's what I did. But the real solution is deciding what you will and won't carry. Once those decisions are made, you stop renegotiating with them every day. And that's where the real stability starts to appear. If you want to download the spreadsheet that we've used for almost 20 years to make those decisions easier, you can grab it below this video. It is the system that helped us pay off $116,000 worth of debt, financially prepare for an adoption, and navigate unpredictable seasons without constant financial stress. It's simple, practical, and it removes a lot of the pressure that responsible people feel. If this video resonated with you, I would love for you to watch the next video. You can click it right here. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe. I would love to hear what you think of the videos.